Welcome and good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give our attendees a couple more seconds before we get started with our February Science Speaker Series. It looks like we have quite a crowd joining us this evening, which is delightful. Hello, Christina. Hello, Anna. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Rain. Hi, Sally. Hope everyone is doing well. And just as everyone starts to file in and we get settled in for our program this evening, just to share with everyone that we will hold a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So there's no need to, raise your hand or anything like that. You can just hold your questions and you can actually put them in the Q&A box at any point during the webinar. And I will moderate those questions toward the end of the presentation. Right. It looks like the bulk of everyone is here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started and welcome both of our presenters this evening. Hi, everyone. I'm Janelle Gurley. I'm the Director of Science and Programs here at the Marine Mammal Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our February Science Speaker Series, featuring Pam Murphy and Kim Schulam of Nantucket Marine Mammal Alliance. And before I hand the screen over and the mic over to both Pam and Kim this evening, I'd like to introduce their topic that they'll be presenting on tonight and share a little bit of a background on both Pam and Kim with you guys. So tonight, Pam and Kim will be discussing why save seals. We will be having a conversation or presentation rather on the importance of seals and other marine mammals in maintaining a healthy marine ecosystem and just how we can all help keep these populations safe. Pam Murphy has been involved in animal rescue for many years, from creating a Be Kind to Animals Club at the age of 7 to being one of the founders of Nantucket Island Safe Harbor for Animals in 2011. Serving 8 years as board president, her extensive board experience with TWN, NISHA, and NAC put her in a solid position to manage MMAN's board and see it develop into a stronger organization, capable of attracting the donor support the mission deserves. A lifelong vegetarian, Pam has never been able to stand idly by when an animal is suffering. To be allowed to approach injured and entangled marine mammals legally and help was what drew her to MMAN. She became level A trained, learning to restrain and disentangle seals, and went on to attend a cetacean stranding workshop with the IFAW. Welcome me this evening, everyone, in welcoming Pam, and then I'll share a little bit about Kim as well. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Kim Schulam began visiting Nantucket in 2013 and fell in love with the remote natural qualities of the island. A biological sciences major in college, she initially considered the fields of marine biology or veterinary medicine, but ultimately pursued a career as a physician's assistant. Now, retired from medicine, she met former Stranding coordinator Scott Leonard and learned of MMAN. She immediately joined the team and became level A trained as well. She regularly attends IFAW's Marine Mammal Mass Stranding training and is a 24-hour HAZWOBER certified for oil spill wildlife rescue. Now a full-time resident of Nantucket, and we're so grateful for that. She serves as the team's stranding coordinator and board vice president. She coordinated MMAN's first team-conducted large whale necropsy last year and works closely with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to maintain the team's stranding agreement as Nantucket's sole agency legally permitted to handle marine mammals. She feels strongly that humans have an obligation to marine life to help them survive, given all we have done to injure them and destroy their environment. Everyone, join me in welcoming Kim this evening. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Thanks, Janelle.
Of course, my pleasure. Well, I'm super excited to learn more about why it's important for us to save seals and to continue to protect the environment in which they continue to thrive. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And again, if any questions, pop them into the Q&A box and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. Pam, screen's all yours, my dear.
Okay, then. Well, I will stumble along in the technical aspects of all of this and hopefully give you some information. I would like to start out by way of introduction to Marine Mammal Alliance Nantucket to start with a 5-minute video. So if you want to grab your popcorn while I attempt to get myself to the video, we'll go from there. I'm not going there. Hold on. Can you see me, Jonelle? Can you see my screen?
I can see you and I can see your opening slide. Can you hit the forward arrow? Perfect.
No, I want to go.
Go back
There we
then.
go.
Yep, there you are.
There we are. Okay. Well, just tell me, make sure I have the audio.
I am not hearing your audio, even though we were before.
No,
No.
no audio. All right, hold on one sec. Told you it would take a sec.
That's all right. Technology has made our lives easier, but there are definitely always little tugs and pulls with it.
Exactly. Okay, so I want to, it's not giving me the option. I'm so sorry, everybody. We had
That's
this
okay. I
down.
stopped. We did. That's all right. So I stopped everyone sharing. Pam, you try to share again and we'll have you share alone.
Okay, it's not giving me the option to share sound like it did before.
Right. Let's do.
Still can't hear it.
No, I can't because you're not presenting right now.
Okay.
So hit share on the Zoom screen again.
All right, hold on one sec. Sorry, everybody. We did have this down like really perfected.
It was.
It was. Okay. On the Zoom screen, which is not coming up for me.
Just need to change some settings. How about now? On the Zoom screen, do you have the share green box?
Yes. But my thing is in the way. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. No sorries. Doing great.
All right, there's the share screen. There's the one I want to share. There we go. Share sound, but I'm not going to optimize the video. Okay. From the beginning. Whew. Hope you got your popcorn.
Perfect.
We had a couple of entangled seals called in, so we're out here to try to find them and disentangle them. And these seals are very skittish, so if they see us and flush to the water, we can't help them. So if you guys don't mind just kind of hanging back here for a little bit, okay? Thank you very much. Oh, I see it. So let me just get it in the net first, and then I'll wave you over. No, 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 no. Grab it by its back flip, gently pull it back. Marine Mammal Alliance is the only entity on the islands of Nantucket, Tuckernuck, and Muskegon who are legally permitted to approach marine mammals under a provisional stranding agreement from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Such a privilege to be able to handle a wild animal. Being a part of their second chance at life is pretty amazing. Sorry, buddy. I know this does not feel good. That might be it. There's more on his flip here. They encounter marine debris, and that's how they become entangled in it. The most frequent thing we see in entanglements would be gill net. We see plastic bag, twine. Anything that is in a loop could conceivably get around a seal's neck.
Well, that was the family we just helped out again, so super.
We share the planet with these animals. I believe that people are good. I believe that people want to do the right thing. No one industry's fault. All we want to do is help educate people. Anything that's round, please just cut it. With all the people that use the beach, if everybody just left the beach and picked up one piece of trash, think of how much trash that would be collected off the beach. That's the way anybody can help.
You know, it's so close to the water, we'll assume we're going to net, and then I don't know what's going to happen. It may be just really easy. Hopefully it is.
The Marine Mammal Alliance Nantucket is a group of really compassionate people from all walks of life that just really want the well-being of marine mammals, whether they're seals, dolphins, whales. We have about 36 volunteers. Not only do we train our new volunteers, but we go through regular trainings with International Fund for Animal Welfare. When you first come upon a marine mammal, the first thing is don't approach it. By law, you need to maintain a distance of 150 feet. Seals are on the beach because they want to be there. So they're either resting, warming up, they may be injured, they may be ill. If you see an entangled animal, the most dangerous thing you can do is flush it back to the water, because if it goes into the water, there's nothing we can do for it. Pick up the phone and please call our hotline. Tell us exactly what you're observing and we'll take it from there.
It was a little feisty. It did not want to go in the crate.
If it just seems like it's deteriorating or there's an obvious wound, we'll capture and crate that animal, ship it via Highline over to the mainland, and then transfer it to one of the rehab centers. Every form of life is as important as ours. We don't have biodiversity and healthy ecosystems. We're not going to survive as a species either. There you go. There you go. Woo! We did it. There's no greater feeling than disentangling an animal and watching it scamper back to the ocean. Everybody feels great when that happens. Teamwork. You saved a life.
All right. Well, we've all seen seals around here on the beach or out in the water. Sometimes they're alone, sometimes they're in large herds. They're often watching our every move or even following along when we walk the beach. They can be affable, curious, and highly entertaining. Did you know that seals can sleep underwater? I was going to start us off with sharing a few fun facts about seals. You've probably seen them like this in the water when you're out looking out into the ocean. This is called bottling, and they've got their long snouts pointed straight up. They're sleeping. They breathe and then they sink below the surface. When carbon dioxide builds up, they have an automatic rear flipper reflex that returns them to the surface to breathe again. Some seals can hold their breath for up to 2 hours and can dive to depths of 1,500 meters. That would be the elephant seal. Compared to terrestrial animals of the same size, seals have much smaller lungs, but they're highly adapted to maximize gas exchange with each breath. They actually empty their lungs of air before a deep dive, as opposed to humans who would take a deep breath before we dive. Their heart rate lowers and blood flows from extremities to vital organs like the brain, the heart, and the muscles, which are specially adapted to store oxygen. In those deep dives, or any dive, the water can be murky and hard to see prey. So how do they manage? Incredibly sensitive whiskers enable them to hunt effectively, even in poor visibility or with poor eyesight. Their specially adapted whiskers, or vibrissae, are able to detect the disturbances created by other creatures moving through the water, even while they themselves are in motion. Again, the elephant seal takes the prize with the most sensitive whiskers of all. This allows them to navigate some of the ocean's darkest regions. All right, so what about those little white pups on the beach you've been seeing all winter? Those are our gray seal pups, and ones we are particularly concerned about this time of year. The reason they're white is because of their baby fur, or lanugo. It's a long, dense fur that many mammalian embryos and or newborns will have. Harbor seals will lose it in utero because they're born in June. But our gray seals are born with it because the females come back here to give birth during the cold winter months, and it helps to absorb sunlight, trap heat, and keep them warm. Once they're weaned, it sheds and is replaced with shorter hair and hopefully a thick layer of blubber for warmth. All right, so how about some common misconceptions about seals? Seals have decimated the commercial fishing industry. Actually, no. Yeah, they are opportunists and will grab at whatever is on the end of your line at Great Point, but for the most part, they don't choose commercially valuable fish like cod. How do we know? Studies of the contents of their bellies and their poop. Speaking of poop, common misconception number 2 is that they are fouling the water. Again, nope. As a matter of fact, they help improve the overall ecosystem by supplying nutrients to underwater and shoreline vegetation. It just goes to show Mother Nature really does know what she's doing, and we best not mess with her. I'll be back with some stories about some of our rescues, but in the meantime, I'm going to let Kim tell you more about all of the above and the bigger picture of why seals matter.
All right, Kim, you're going to start sharing your screen again.
You think so,
Sorry, you got it.
huh? No. Oh, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Really?
So on the Zoom function, find the green share again.
Yeah. I lost my Zoom screen. Okay,
Find
now
it in your
Zoom
dock.
screen. I don't have a share option on the bottom of my Zoom screen.
Hover at the top.
But okay, here it is. Got it.
Perfect.
Okay. Can you see it now?
I can. Do you want to keep the presenter view?
No, I would prefer not to.
Swap displays.
Okay.
It's okay.
And how do I swap the display? Oh, on the bottom.
That's at the top, the third, or that way too. Yeah.
Is that good?
Perfect.
Yay. Okay. All right. Well, hello again, everybody. My name is Kim Schulam. I am, again, the Stranding Coordinator of Marine Mammal Alliance. I would just like to reiterate our mission statement. which is to monitor, rescue, and protect marine mammals on Nantucket, advocate for their well-being, and educate the public. So what I'd like to do here this evening is define biodiversity and why it is important in our marine ecosystems, identify the marine mammal species that inhabit the waters around Nantucket, help you understand how marine mammals promote biodiversity in our marine ecosystem, discuss what man does to help protect marine mammals, and identify ways we can all help to protect these animals. So what is biodiversity anyway? Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, including all living things, from the largest whale to the tiniest microorganism, and how they live and interact together to maintain a healthy planet. Speaking of biodiversity, I had to share this slide. We had a hotline call last week about somebody who had found this gorgeous blue lobster on Cape Cod. They were wondering what to do with it. I had asked the reporting party to send a picture of it, and I was shocked at the vibrance of this color. It looks like it's been painted to me. So this is a genetic anomaly that normally occurs, or not really so normally, occurs only once in every 2 million lobsters born. So indeed a rare find, and just wanted to share that with you guys. So back to biodiversity. These interactions and relationships are extremely complex. In the same way that an engine depends upon each of its parts to make a functioning whole, ecosystems depend on each and every species within to make a functioning, healthy system. If one of these crucial parts fails or is removed, the entire engine ceases to function properly. The consequences of simplifying these relationships can have deleterious and unforeseen effects on ecosystem function. I think we as humans tend to not see too far beyond what affects us right now and right here. If we're short-sighted and we only focus on a few species in a relatively small area within a relatively short span of time, without considering more far-reaching consequences, entire ecosystems can be disturbed with often disastrous outcomes that were not even considered. For example, many of you are aware that between 1888 and 1962, towns in Maine and Massachusetts offered bounties between $1 and $5 for each seal, nose, or tail. These bounties were paid due to the perception that seals competed with commercial fisheries. An estimated 72 to 135,000 harbor and gray seals were killed during this time, and these seals were almost completely extirpated. Little or no consideration was given to any far-reaching consequences these actions might cause. The best scientific evidence actually does not support that reducing seal populations is a means to recover fisheries stocks. Fisheries and ocean biologists say that seals don't appear to have a significant effect on fish stocks. Enter the Marine Mammal Protection Act, or the MMPA, of 1972. Seal populations only returned after they were given protection with the passage of the Marine Mammal Protection Act. This law made it illegal to hunt, kill, harass, or collect these and other marine mammals. Until their populations recently began to recover, no one within living memory had seen a healthy marine ecosystem with seals interacting in their natural role. The MMPA is one of the most effective environmental laws ever passed in the United States. As some populations of marine mammals like gray seals and humpback whales recover and repopulate their former ranges, humans are learning to live with them again. While we're just readjusting to each other and our roles in a shared ecosystem, we can look to science for some of the information that we need to exist. I just wanted to add that this morning, the House Committee on Natural Resources held an oversight hearing entitled Evaluating the Implementation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act. We do not yet know what the outcome of that hearing is. We can only hope that Congress can recognize the big picture and far-reaching benefits of having these animals remain in the ecosystem. If we could just let nature do her thing, she would self-regulate these populations. Unfortunately, we are a very impatient species. So before we talk about how these animals help to enhance biodiversity in the marine ecosystem, I'd like to introduce you to the most common species we see here on Nantucket. Meet the pinnipeds. We see 3 species of seals here on Nantucket. By far the most prevalent are the gray seals. These are the seals you'll see out at Great Point and out swimming all over the island and occasionally hauling up on beaches. These seals have their pups in December through February, so we're just now at the tail end of their pupping season. Moms give birth to a single white-coated pup each year, and she'll remain with her pup for only 2 to 3 weeks, plumping him up on her fat-rich milk. After that, she will leave, and the pup is left to figure out life on its own. Current thought is that mom doesn't teach the pup to swim or forage, so it must figure that out on its own. Subsequently, only about half of them will survive. After weaning, the pup will begin to molt its white baby fur and get its beautiful silvery gray to black spotted coat. So here you see a mom and her little fat white pup. And then these 3 pups are in various stages of the molt. So you can see there's white mixed with black fur. This guy's really chubby. This guy's pretty skinny. You can see some skin folds here. And these are just healthy looking little white pups. It's very normal to see these seals on the beach. The pups may fast for as long as 30 days while they figure out their next chapter. Some will appear very chubby, like this guy, and others will typically lose up to 30% of their baby fat during this time. It can be concerning to see a thin pup, but it is the loss of body fat that will ultimately give the pup the urge to go forage. The ones that survive will continue to grow in strength and boldness and venture further out into the water, seeking larger and more challenging prey. The second most prevalent seal we see here on Nantucket are the harbor seals. These are the chubs that you frequently see on the jetties. We don't really have all that many responses to these seals. They pup in May and June, and we will occasionally receive a call about a skinny pup that isn't thriving and may need to be sent to a rehab partner. The harp seal is a subarctic species that will occasionally visit Nantucket in January and February. In fact, we just had one a couple of days ago. Their native habitat is the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. They get much of their hydration from ingesting ice and snow. Since we don't have too much of that here on Nantucket, the concern with this species is that they may ingest sand, rocks, and vegetation. While they're able to pass a moderate amount of sand, rocks and vegetation can cause a life-threatening bowel obstruction. As advised by our rehab partners, we will usually observe an animal for at least 24 hours before capture and transport to rehab. During this time, we're in constant communication with veterinarians and marine mammal animal care specialists. This is a more sensitive species than our tough grays. The process of capture and transport cannot be considered lightly, as we may only be contributing to an animal's pain and suffering. If we do observe an animal ingesting significant rocks and vegetation, we will capture and send to our rehab partners for intense hydration and rest. If this does not aid the animal in passing the material, surgery may be the only option, but this is very risky at best, as many times they won't recover from anesthesia. A seal's life is harsh. I'm always amazed when I spot an animal with a huge and ragged scar. Perhaps the wound was inflicted by a shark or a boat propeller, a bull seal. They endure the pain, rest, and heal if they're lucky. We'll often receive calls about injured seals, but there's only so much we're able to do. Their skin does not hold well together when sutured, and most of our rehab partners do not have the ability to manage extensive wounds. Plus, again, the whole process of capture, crating, and transporting a seal to rehab is extremely stressful for these animals, contributing to their pain and discomfort. We're constantly asking ourselves if our actions are contributing to their suffering because it makes us feel better. So these are just a couple of photos of some shark interactions. I tried not to make any of them too gory. You can see these are fresher wounds, but they're not actively bleeding, so they're at least a few hours old. So most likely a seal with this type of injury is going to do pretty well. Salt water is a great help in the healing process. And as long as the wound doesn't remove a limb or enter a body cavity or become infected, it should eventually heal. You can see here, sorry, it's kind of a grainy slide, but you can see the wound here. It's several days old and it has begun to granulate or heal in, and the wound should heal within time. And in this slide, you can see sort of an arc-shaped scar here and more of a linear scar here that are well healed. And this is These were taken from a live seal, so you see it did heal and survive. We don't have the equipment or the training to handle an animal much greater than 150 pounds. Euthanasia may be an option, but if we feel there's any chance the animal can survive, we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt. If we must euthanize, the carcass cannot be left on the beach with chemicals on board, thus removing it from the food web. Sometimes we have to let nature take its course, and the best course of action for these animals is to just keep people and animals away and let the animal pass in peace. But these guys are really curious, and especially the young pups of the year as they explore their world. They encounter marine debris and frequently become entangled in it. So what should you do if you see an entangled animal? First of all, as I mentioned in the video, please keep a far distance so it doesn't scare back into the water. As I mentioned in the video, if it retreats to the water, we will not be able to help it. Even when compromised, these animals are much too fast to capture. Call our hotline. We will attempt to capture and remove the entanglement material from the animal. If the material is not removed, these entanglements can hamper the animal's ability to swim, feed, swallow, and breathe. And as the pup continues to grow, the material will become more deeply embedded and it will eventually die. Regardless of your opinion of these animals, I think we can all agree that it's a horrible thing for any living creature to have to suffer and die this way. Once we remove the entanglement material, we will photograph, measure, make note of color, size, material, and any distinguishing markings. And then all of this data is submitted to NOAA's gear specialists who will work to identify the source of the material so mitigating measures may be taken. So here you see, I'm sorry, it's not very big, you can't see it very well, but this was one of the worst entanglements we had seen. This guy had gill net, monofilament, rope, a buoy, all attached to it. And luckily, after we removed the gear, there was a fairly deep wound on the dorsal aspect of its neck, but the front was unscathed. So this animal was released and should have done hopefully pretty well. Here you can see another picture of an animal that we had just disentangled and also had a nasty wound, but again, that guy should do pretty well. So lose the loop. We can all help to prevent these entanglements if we lose the loop. If any of your trash is in a loop, please cut it, no matter the size, to minimize the likelihood of it ending up around a neck. We have seen clothing, a toilet seat, plastic bags, plastic sheeting, a bottomless bucket, gill net, fishing line, fish hooks, bait bags, loop twine, balloon string with balloons attached. You name it, if it's in the water, it has the potential to become a problem. This is why it's so important to dispose of any trash, any type, anywhere properly. Also, when you enjoy the beach, I'll ask it again. I did it in the video, I'll ask it again. Please leave the beach a tiny bit better than the way that you found it. Pick up and dispose of just one piece of trash that you didn't bring. Given all the people who enjoy our beautiful beaches, think of all the trash that would be removed if each beachgoer did that simple thing every time they go to the beach. Other marine mammals you might see on Nantucket are common dolphins, striped dolphins, Atlantic white-sided dolphins, bottlenose dolphins. It's always disturbing when one of our or several of these animals is discovered on a beach or in a shallow waterway remote from open seas. Animals in shallow waterways need to be relocated to deeper water when possible. This is always a tricky endeavor with highly variable outcomes. A dolphin in a shallow water situation may be disoriented and confused, and/or it may be compromised in some way. Dolphins may also strand on a beach with easy access to open water, but in the vast majority of these cases, these animals are sick and compromised in some way. If there are no obvious illness, injuries, entanglements, our vet, Dr. Steve St. Pierre, will perform a health assessment. If the animal is deemed stable and doesn't have any obvious signs of injury or illness, we will usually attempt to refloat that animal, conditions permitting. Unfortunately, in the majority of these cases, it will restrand. We'll only attempt to refloat the animal a couple of times, and after that, the stress of stranding will have caused it to become even further compromised, and any interventions will only contribute to the animal's suffering. At this point, we may euthanize or opt to keep people and animals away so it can pass peacefully. There is a lot of emotion in these cases for the public as well as for us. Well-intentioned members of the public will frequently offer help and advice, but the most helpful thing you can do is to please leave the area and allow us to do our jobs unhindered. We do see the occasional whale here on Nantucket, but the vast majority of the time it's a dead whale that is washed up. We see humpbacks, minkies, fin, pilot, and the highly endangered North Atlantic right whale. The right whale is highly endangered. The current estimate is that there are only about 370 whales remaining, with only about 70 of those being reproductively active. The biggest threats to these whales are entanglement in fishing gear and ship strike. Here we see some examples of some entangled animals. Here we see examples of propeller strikes. You can see these linear wounds on these poor animals. And then this is what happens when a large ship hits an unsuspecting whale. You may recall the young female right whale that washed up on the vineyard last year. Necropsy results revealed that the cause of death had been a chronic entanglement around the tailstock of that whale. Although not a large amount of gear, the ropes had become so deeply embedded in her flesh, causing chronic infection and ultimately a no doubt slow and painful death. Scientists and engineers and fishermen are working together to develop lineless fishing gear. These innovations are showing great promise, but they remain expensive. The government has in the past provided subsidies to the fishing industry to make the gear more affordable. We will have to see if those subsidies will be continued. International Fund for Animal Welfare, or IFA, is currently working on technology to help ships detect whales early enough to avoid these collisions. When a whale does wash up here on Nantucket, if the carcass is reasonably intact, MMAN will perform a necropsy to help determine the cause of death. Just as a reminder, it is illegal to collect souvenirs from a whale carcass with fines of more than $10,000. So why save marine mammals anyways? There are lots of them around, right? I think there are certainly a lot of conflicting opinions out there about seals, but whatever your opinion of these animals may be, they are an important part of what keeps our marine ecosystem healthy. They help to enhance biodiversity and improve ecosystem health, productivity, and resilience, all of which are essential for sustainable ecosystems and climate-ready fisheries. So how do they accomplish this? The secret is in the poop. Their feces return important nutrients back to the water and to the land as well. Many of you have probably heard of the whale pump or the whale conveyor belt. The concept is this. This is a beautiful slide and detailed that I borrowed from the internet to depict how the movements of whales throughout the vertical water column redistribute nutrients from top to bottom and back to the top again. I made this simpler slide to try to simplify things. Whales swim through the water, dive to depths to forage, rise again to the surface, where they poop, and the poop returns important nutrients to the water. Another way that whales redistribute nutrients is via what is called the whale conveyor belt. Whales have some of the longest migratory routes of any animals. They forage in the food-rich, cold waters of northern latitudes, then migrate south to have their calves in the warmer, less food-abundant waters of the southern latitudes. Their poop all along the way releases and redistributes nutrients to the water. This is especially important for adding life-giving nutrients to the food-poorer, warm waters of the southern latitudes. The process continues during their migration north to forage once again. So phytoplankton, these little guys, are microscopic plants that drift on the surface of the oceans. They provide nutrition for krill, which in turn feed large whales. If the whale should die, it falls to the bottom of the ocean, forming what we call a whale fall. Their large carcasses sequester great amounts of carbon at the bottom of the ocean. All the tissues and organic matter in their bodies are partly made of carbon, which is carried and held at the bottom of the ocean, thereby keeping it from being released to the atmosphere. On the ocean bottom, the carcass will provide life-giving nutrition to a myriad of organisms and animals. If the animal continues to live and merely poops, into the water, their fecal plumes release tons of nutrients such as ammonium to the water. These nutrients go on to feed the phytoplankton, and the cycle continues on. Another special benefit of the phytoplankton is that, like all plants, they remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, metabolizing it and releasing oxygen back to the atmosphere. Current estimates are that phytoplankton remove roughly 10 billion metric tons of carbon from the atmosphere each year. That's about 40% of the total carbon captured globally through the process of photosynthesis, all at the rate that our species is spewing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere with our activities. Let that be a compelling enough reason to keep our oceans healthy. In much the same way that whales redistribute nutrients, seals do the same. Let's call this the seal pump. Here again, phytoplankton feed the fish, fish feed the seals poop, releasing nutrients into the surrounding water, which go to feed the plankton. And the whole cycle repeats over and over. And again, the phytoplankton remove carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the atmosphere. Because seals spend much of their time on land as well as in the sea, they have the unique ability to contribute nutrients to the edge of the ocean and have been recognized as important contributors to restoring vegetation. A seal poops, important nutrients are released and redistributed, and vegetation is nourished. So next time you think seal poop is gross, think again. One creature's poop is another creature's food. So when a seal dies, much like a whale, the carcass will feed other animals and microorganisms, and the nutrients again are recycled and returned to the ecosystem. Their feeding behavior helps to keep fish populations in check as well. Seals are opportunists, primarily feeding on white hake, silver hake, red hake, yes, some cod, flounder, crustaceans, squid, dogfish, and skates. We know that harbor seals may actually be increasing herring stocks by consuming their preferred diet of hake in the Straits of Georgia. Contrary to what many believe, they do not deplete fish stocks. We do that. There aren't enough of them, and they don't succeed in catching their prey every time. Yes, it's very frustrating when a seal steals the fish from your line, but can you blame the creature for taking advantage of an easy meal? So in summary, we're only recently learning what our rebounding marine mammal species contribute to global ocean health and ecosystem function. They can act as ecosystem engineers, beneficially manipulating the environment. Whales and seals are able to cycle nutrients from the bottom to the top of the ocean and back again to the bottom. Their decomposing bodies provide food and nutrients to many organisms. This is not at all to say that there aren't detrimental impacts to fisheries and inconveniences that occur when a rebounding species makes its way back into the system. We've lived for 3 generations now without these animals in our backyard. There are real and perceived conflicts for sure. One urgent way to address these issues is to do the science and to address these particular concerns. In our region, researchers are working to address the basic understanding of gray seals, from what they eat to where they go, how they interact with fisheries, how human behavior alters seal behavior, and how they contribute to ecosystem function. To wrap things up, what I hope I've done here is define what biodiversity is and why it is so important to ecosystem health, introduce you to some of Nantucket's most prevalent marine mammal species, explain some of the ways that these animals help to promote biodiversity and ecosystem health, told you a little bit about what Marine Mammal Alliance does to help and protect and advocate for these animals. And I hope I've told you a few things that you can do to help make their lives just a little bit easier. Thank you for listening, and now I'm going to turn you back to Pam.
I'm back. I'm not sure if you can see my screen now.
Yes.
If we can?
Yes.
Cool. I just thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about a few of our rescue success stories. Let me go to there. In the early evening of January 5th, we had a call to our hotline about a tiny white seal on the beach. A white seal is always of concern, as that means it's a pup. A tiny white seal is even more concerning. A Marine Mammal Alliance team member arrived to find a wet, shivering, lethargic, days-old pup at a very public beach access. Placing signs to keep people and dogs at the requisite 150-foot distance, we hoped that Mama would feel safe enough to come back to nurse during the night. Returning at dawn, though, we found no tracks to indicate that this pup had been fed. He was determined to be a maternally dependent, abandoned pup and bundled off to our colleagues at the National Marine Life Center on the Cape, where he was dubbed Moon and was their first seal patient of 2025. Their naming theme for this year is celestial bodies. From December through February, we're on the lookout for abandoned and lost pups. After giving birth, mom seal will return numerous times a day to nurse, providing a uniquely fat-rich milk. They're born at about 30 pounds, and well-cared for pups can reach 100 pounds in just the 3 weeks of nursing. This one is particularly plump. Without this, they will perish, as about 50% of them do. They lose about half of this fat in the next few weeks trying to figure out how to swim and fish on their own. When Moon arrived at NMLC, it was revealed that he suffered from labored breathing as a result of bronchitis, a bacterial infection of the umbilical stump, dehydration, increased liver enzymes, and was underweight. But most notably, he had severe bilateral conjunctivitis and inflammation of the cornea. He struggled to even open his eyes. He eventually regained sight in his right eye, which is considered enough for release when and if his health returns. His prognosis was guarded. I learned just the other day that he is off all of his meds and he was moved to the pre-release pool, learning how to navigate and track and catch fish, even with his impaired vision. This little pup was observed on the beach near Brant Point on January 17th of 2025. He seemed thin, but again, we hoped that mom would return during the night. We posted signs and planned to return at dawn. Sadly, dawn revealed that this little guy had since been attacked in the interim and had multiple puncture wounds on his back. He was swiftly collected and sent off to NMLC, who confirmed the bites were canine. Since we have no coyotes, foxes, or wolves, we can only deduce it was a dog, despite our warning signage to stay back. It was no fault of the dogs, it's instinct, but owners really must be mindful and keep dogs on leash at least through pupping season, please. This is not just for the sake of the seal pups, but because either could harbor potentially transmissible diseases. Pluto, he was named Pluto at NMLC, and he also had eye issues, likely caused by viral infection, but possibly due to the puncture wounds he sustained in the dog attack. Full vision in his right eye makes his release more likely, but his left will not recover. The 150-foot rule I mentioned is in fact federal law and pertains to any marine mammal ashore. Only trained man team members, Nantucket Police Department, or the environmental police officer may approach. This rule can be hard to adhere on Nantucket as our beaches can be quite narrow. But it is important not to disturb any aged seal, even a little bit. Pups need their mama to return. Older seals are ashore 50% of the time to rest, thermoregulate, and recover from illness and injury. It's a tough world out there in the ocean, so let's at least give them a break on land. Any change of behavior in the animal is considered harassment, at least at this point. As you see here, first becoming alert, then hissing, then flapping, and finally retreating to the water without needed rest. If they're or worse, with an entanglement that we now cannot remove if they have retreated to the water. If we can catch them, we can cut them free of rope, gill net, balloon strings, everything that Kim had mentioned earlier. So I did get an update on Pluto. He has had some setbacks due to the painful cysts on his eyes and GI problems, and he is much smaller than your typical pup, but they are happy to report that he has plenty of the typical gray seal attitude. This pathetic lady was picked up at Low Beach in Sconset on May 14th in 2024. She presented as lethargic, painfully thin, with an injured front flipper and swollen back flippers. She was in critical condition. While we waited for the high line, our team veterinarian, Dr. Steve St. Pierre, administered fluids. Once at NMLC for rehab, it was determined she had a traumatic open fracture of the left front flipper, much swelling, and a bone infection. She also had severe puncture wounds on her head, her neck, all 4 flippers, an abscess flipper, and heavy lungworm burden. But she also had tenacity. By June 8th, she was taking field trips in the big moving pool for strength building. It was a slow road to recovery for her. After 3 months of intensive care at NMLC, Banana Split was released into the wild on August 14th. She wasn't quite sure she wanted to go, but she went. I responded to this very sad girl on December 8th, 2023. As you can see, her face was bloody. She had an open wound on her flank and back flippers and was dehydrated. We later learned she'd been seen on the beach further west the day before and was flushed back into the water, repeatedly using all of her energy to haul out. Because of the time delay, we were hampered by ferry schedule and NMLC's ability to receive her once on the Cape. Sometimes they can meet us in Hyannis and transport a patient to Bourne themselves, but often one of our volunteers has to secure a vehicle over there and deliver the patient. Even then, it can't be so late in the day that NMLC staff cannot perform the proper intake requirements. This girl would be collected in the morning. Once at NMLC, she was dubbed Katmai. Their naming theme in 2023 was national parks. She was indeed in critical condition and loaded with parasites. Her bloody face was due to coughing from a heavy lungworm burden. We didn't think that she would make it. But when I had the opportunity to visit and retrieve all of our travel crates 7 weeks later in late January, she was happy and healthy and building strength in the pool. Katmai was released to the wild after 2 months on February 10th, 2024. Cookies and Cream, the naming theme for 2024 was Sweet Treats. Cookies and Cream was called in on the beach road along Maya Comet on January 11th, 2024. Searching for Mama, she had traveled up a wide beach, over the dunes, and into the beach road after successive storms, and had just said, "Get me out of this ocean." Too far from the beach and no other tracks confirmed that she was abandoned. Once we got her crated, she zonked out for the entire duration of her trip across the Sound. She was deemed to be malnourished, dehydrated, with flipper abrasions and sea lice. This tiny pup was discovered in someone's garden in Quidnet on February 9th, 2024. If Mom doesn't show up, pups will wander and cry looking for her. It's heart-wrenching as they are so upset and can sound very much like a human baby. Lucky for her, Carl St. John was working nearby, heard her cries, and called Man. When Kim and teammate Jean arrived, it was evident she was way too young to be on her own. Since the best place to be is with Mom, however, they brought her back to the nearest beach with fingers crossed that Mama would appear. By morning, she had not, so off she went to NMLC, where she was named Cannoli. Maternally dependent pups must be fed a very high fat content seal milk substitute in order to fatten them up to be weaned. In rehab, they are tube fed and then taught to eat fish, swim, and eventually catch fish in their pools. But they still need to hone their swimming skills and build muscles. Now, I couldn't capture this as a video, but I wish you could see her playing in this little tunnel that they gave her. She just went around and around. It was the happiest thing, building muscles and strength. By March 14th, she was independently eating, spending more time in her pool, and able to thermoregulate her body more regularly. She was released on March 24th. Lastly, our famous wayward wanderer I dubbed Sacagawea Sammy. Thanks to a call from Jamie Grimes on his way to work, I got there fairly quickly, but not before Sammy had hightailed it into the bush. He had apparently crossed the beach to Sacagawea Pond, made his way all the way to the western end of the pond, where he hauled out and just kept on going over the paved road and toward the bike path. With the help of Dr. Steve and teammate Sally, I was able to grab him and put him into a net. He was deemed to be weaned and able to survive on his own, so we brought him to Quidnet Beach and let him return to the sea at his leisure. In the meantime, Jamie posted his video of him in the road, which quickly went viral, and Sammy's tale was told around the world. In the Nantucket Current, on Mass Live, the Boston Globe, the New York Post, and the London Daily Mail. So I'll finish with this slide. Our stories are endless, with some mundane and some insane, but we love what we do and are grateful to be able to help the animals in need. Please take down our hotline, put it in your phone, and call if you see any marine mammal ashore. We will check on all of them. So that's my story. Thank you all for joining us. And yes, if anybody has any questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
Thank you, Pam and Kim, for your wonderful presentation this evening. And I know that there are a couple of questions in the Q&A section, so I'm just going to jump right into them if that's okay with both of you.
Sure.
Awesome. So our first question from an anonymous attendee: have you seen a change in the number of harp seals coming to Nantucket over the years?
Pam, you want to get that or you want me to?
No, I'll let you take that.
Okay. Maybe a slight increase, but it's not unusual for us to see a handful, maybe 3 to 5 every season in January and February. So I can't say that there's really been a great increase, at least not since I've been doing this. And I joined the team in 2018, so haven't seen a huge increase in their numbers.
So you would say that the populations about stayed the same in your time?
The number that come down here. So the harp seal is the subarctic species that comes down from the north. And so they just visit here from time to time. I don't know if anybody really knows what draws them down here, if there's a cold current that they follow or what it is. Some people have surmised that it has to do with climate change, but I don't know how that influences them. They are predominantly an ocean species. They normally just come on land to have their pups. So, I mean, we always feel like when we see them here that they haul up onto the beach because they've had such a long swim and they need to rest. So it could be that there's something wrong with them or that they just need to rest. And they're usually on our beaches for 2 to 3 days and then they take off. And those are the ones that I mentioned that will frequently eat sand or rocks and vegetation. So that's the main thing that we look out for with that species.
Awesome.
We did have 2 of them that passed away on our beaches this year, and both were cases that nothing could be done for them. They had necropsies revealed hemorrhagic pneumonia, and like Kim said, they come up to rest, but sometimes they come up because they just can't keep going.
Thank you for sharing. And another question: what do you do with the data that your team collects from dead seals?
Great question. We collect that for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So there's a database, a national database called the Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Program. And all that data is entered into that database, and then that becomes available to students, scientists, politicians, whoever needs to get that data.
Thank you. And do you only deal with seals on Nantucket? What about on the Cape itself? And have you responded to any strandings on Tuckernuck or any of like Muskeget? I know you might have covered that. I'm just going through the questions.
Yeah, we don't respond on the Cape. IFA, that's their territory. So just as we're the only entity permitted on these islands, they're the only entity permitted over there. So we can go and assist them if they need assistance, as they could come and assist us. but we do not normally respond to those animals. Yes, we can respond to animals on Tuckernuck and Muskeget. We don't normally. It's a boat ride, obviously. We don't always have a boat available to us. And usually there's nobody over there to even see an animal that's in distress. Occasionally, Mass Audubon may be over there collecting bird data and they'll call something in, or somebody's just a day tripper on a boat during the summer. But for the most part, we just don't get a lot of calls for animals on those two islands. We do try to get over there when we're able to, just to kind of take a survey. We also have a survey airplane, so we'll do reconnaissance flights several times during the season just to kind of check out where the seals are, how many of them are out there, kind of get an idea of how many pups are being born. And so we do those aerial surveys.
Thank you. That sounds pretty exciting. The reconnaissance surveys.
Really.
About how many do you do per year? Would you say 4, between 4 and 10?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So almost
We're lucky
quarterly.
that one of our teammates is very generous with his plane. We don't own a plane.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. And any excuse to go up in the air, he's happy to take us. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Super convenient, which is nice. I
big
guess.
shout out to Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. I guess one of the questions that I have is, are either of you able to elaborate a little bit more on the role of apex predators and their importance in regulating or helping to co-regulate the fish populations and preventing an ecosystem collapse? Is that something you guys can talk a little bit about?
Yeah, a little bit. So seals are actually considered mesopredators, so they're not apex. The great whites, as everybody knows, those are the apex predators. There's a lot of concern, I think, or a lot of talk anyways, about the great whites being attracted back to the island because the seal population has burgeoned, which is true, but that is healthy. The seals belong there, the sharks belong there, and the sharks actually help keep the seal population in check. The seals help keep certain fish populations in check and certain crustaceans. There are so many far-reaching, little tentacles of what these animals do in their respective roles in the ecosystem, but those are just kind of the obvious ones. Did that
They
answer the
contribute
question?
to the well, they contribute to the nutrient cycle as well, just like the whales and the seals do.
Oh, for sure.
The movement of their waste and their carbon sequestration also. They really play a vital role in biodiversity. And if you don't have sharks in your water, then you have a problem. So it's a good thing to have them here. And you just have to be careful, be mindful.
We're in their turf when we're in the water.
I was just going to say, it is their home after all. We can't be
It
surprised
is.
that they're
It
sharks
is.
and seals.
Exactly.
Did that answer your question, Donnell?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the other questions that I had is, I know that everyone who works as a part of the Stranding team, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to, be certified in order to do that, as it's regulated or permitted rather. What opportunities are there for volunteers who wanted to be involved with Marine Mammal Alliance? What are some things or activities that they can help support this group with?
Oh gosh. Well, there's the obvious animal responses. I'll cover these, Pam. You can cover some of the other responsibilities. Obviously, animal rescue. If you want to be somebody who just transports, or a pilot, or gosh, I'm totally drawing a blank, but there's so much that we do. But we also need administrative help, people who can enter the data, who can organize the data. What else, Pam? Volunteer coordinating, educational programs. There's so many ways that you can get involved. If you have an interest in this work, please, again, just call our hotline and tell them that you're interested. And whoever's covering the hotline that day will put you in touch with the appropriate person. And we'd love to have you aboard and We'll get you trained and put you to work at whatever it is you want to do. Pam?
Yeah,
anything-
we did usually in the fall or early winter, we've done some information sessions at the library or recruitments. And so that's kind of this is what we're all about thing. And then people that are interested can follow up with a actual hands-on training. But like Kim said, there's all kinds of aspects of what we do that it's time consuming, and we're all volunteers, so it's great to have some help. We do have a couple of educational programs. We do a SEAL 101 on the beach in Sconset in the summertime, and it's really fun, but it takes several people to do that and work with the kids and work with the parents. And because the more we can share the information about the importance of these animals and the importance of sharing the beach and the ocean and understanding the importance, then it goes all the way up through the family. You tell a 4-year-old and they're going to tell grandma, you can't go near that seal because I learned that. So we've done our own programs. We did some stuff at the Lighthouse School. We did a couple programs with Great Harbor Yacht Club. So there's a lot to it. The planning and all. So if anybody prefers to do that kind of help.
It sounds like you need some coordination support, but the administrative tasks.
We won't turn anyone away.
So everyone listening, if you can lend a hand, know that they welcome it. We have a couple more questions. Go ahead,
you can
Pam.
just donate. There's always donating if that's the easiest thing to do.
Oh, that.
Couple more questions before we wrap for the evening. So an anonymous attendee is asking, how much does an adult male versus a female seal weigh on average? Or what's the difference, I would say?
I'll just go to the grays since that's our most common one. Adult bulls can get up in like the 800s to 800 pounds. Females are more around 500 to 600. So they're big. And so I mentioned in my presentation that we are only equipped to and trained to handle animals of up to about 150 pounds. After that, especially for something like a disentanglement, you really need to be able to remotely sedate an animal that large. And we don't have the permit or the training to do so at that time. It's actually very difficult to get. But there are avenues to do that. And someday I would love it if we could be trained to do that, because we do see large adult animals with entanglements and it just breaks your heart to not be able to do anything about it.
And is that something that, I know you said that you hope to be able to be trained to do that. Is that something that's on the docket that you guys are looking into being able to
NOAA
do,
actually,
or not just quite yet?
No, NOAA is actually trying to spell out the pathway to do that. They don't want to get too many people. It's a long story, but they're fairly limited in how many people they can permit or they will permit. And so there is a pathway, and they're going to start making that more readily available to Stranding network teams. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Like I said, it's a bigger picture than that is just too much to go into here.
A little bit more convoluted, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And political and technical.
Definitely. All of the cults.
Yeah.
How long have the seals been rebounding? An anonymous attendee asks.
Pam, do you want to address that, or you want me to?
Well, since the Marine Mammal Protection Act in 1972, and they're only just now reaching their historical numbers. It's taken that long for them to come back to the numbers that they should be at. That's a good balance. And then, the sharks are here to keep it at the number that it works best. They'll take out the ill and the injured, and everybody works together. So yeah, it's taken, what's that, 3 generations? Or more.
And I think it's important for people to understand too that these animals are not going to overgrow and overtake an island or the ocean as long as their checks and balances are kept intact, they will reach a carrying capacity whereby they'll outnumber their resources. And once that happens, once there's not enough food, then they're not going to survive. So, you know, Mother Nature has a way of keeping populations in check if we don't muck it up.
Interfere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they belong here. They're not an invasive species. They belong here.
Right.
So it does all work. It's a different
Mhm.
story if somebody had introduced, you know, a different animal.
Yeah.
Right. And I think speaking to, you know, since the 1972 time period, showing that rebound, you know, that positive rebound rather, it just goes to show that with, you know, proper education and extensive education and working with people, you know, what the impacts and the long lasting effects can be on, you know, populations that are at risk.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
laws.
Yeah,
So we're
definitely.
hoping that that the law, the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act are not diminished to the point where, you know, we're facing that again because of misconceptions about, you know, anything that seals people might think about them. It's we can only hope. It's very devastating to find out that they're considering diminishing or even eliminating.
And one more question. Are seals ever aggressive towards swimmers?
No.
Well, never say never. I mean, as a
Not typically.
general, as a general rule, they don't want to have anything to do with us. And they won't attack. If they're approached, they will bite if they feel threatened, you know, like when we capture them, they're not happy with us. And so they'll try to bite. But for the most part, no, they won't. But never say never. In nature, you're always, you know, there can always be a rogue animal that, you know, a rogue wave, a rogue animal that goes ballistic. So, you know, my best advice would be don't swim with sharks for the even bigger reason that they attract great white sharks. So you don't want to swim in water where there are seals swimming if you can help it.
Thank you so
But in
much.
terms of being on the beach, only if you approach them would they
Right.
kind of lunge at you maybe, but they're not going to come chasing after you.
Right.
No,
They're giving you a warning.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, they're not going to chase after you.
They'll
They're not going to
hiss,
go after it.
slap, and do all kinds of stuff before they do that.
Mm-mm.
Just responding to a
There's
couple of
we're doing a
other.
book club right now. I'm going to throw this out there.
Mhm.
We're we just had our first book club meeting tonight at Mitchell's, and the book we're reading is called The Odyssey of KP2. And if you're interested in more like the personality of seals and just what they're capable of and their mental capacity, it's really a wonderful book. It's not a gray seal. It's a Hawaiian monk seal that was abandoned by its mother and captured because monk seals are endangered, so they needed to save it. And it turned out it had diminished eyesight, so they had to keep it. And it's probably about 13 years old now, but that seal has contributed so much to research and been so cooperative. It's really it's really great if you want to get into the psyche of a seal and find out what their personalities are like.
I know I have a lull. I'm just responding to a couple of other comments in the chat, and no one's comments are being or thoughts being silenced. Our goal at the Marine Mammal Association is to host different presentations and to facilitate a conversation around the material that is being presented. But I am responding to our guest. Okay. And that, I think within the presentation, you guys actually answered the questions that I had. I'm just going through my list, my notes list on my phone, and you guys actually answered all of the questions that I felt like I had. Is there a question that I have not asked you or attendees have not asked you that you hope that we addressed this evening?
I don't think so.
Yeah, nothing
Okay.
comes to mind. I kind of feel like we tried to get everything that we felt was important about these animals out there during the presentation, and people asked really great questions. Thank you very much for the questions. I don't think so. I feel like everything.
No, thanks for the opportunity to be able to
Yeah,
talk about this. It was
yeah, thank
fun.
Well, I think, seals are an important part of our community here on Nantucket. And
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful that you both worked on this presentation to share with us in February when, at a time where everyone's traveling as well. And it's just nice that we had so many attendees this evening who were interested
Yeah.
in what you had to share. So
Yeah.
I'm super grateful to both of you, as well as to the entire alliance, your organization, because you really are an organization, and you're getting some positive feedback as well in the chat saying thank you, this was very informative, thank you for your
Oh, good.
time.
Good,
And
good.
I used to work with Dr. St. Pierre at the animal hospital many
Oh,
years
you
ago,
did?
so
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
he's great.
Great, you
yeah,
did. Yeah.
you did. Yes,
Yeah.
Pam, we go
Yeah.
back, in
Yeah.
time.
We go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
but
think
again,
one
on
thing
behalf, go
it
ahead,
occurred to me,
sorry.
though, I was just going to say how important seals are to the economy, because tourists really love them, and there's so many, seal tours, and people want to
Mhm.
see them. So,
They are very fascinated by them, I would agree.
yeah, and that makes me happy. I'm glad that there's that. Anyway, that was the only thing we didn't talk about.
But watch them from a distance.
Yes,
150
150
feet,
feet
please.
or more.
Sorry, very good
Yes.
to know. You were paying
I've
attention.
been paying attention, yes. Well, on behalf of the Marine Mammal Association, I just want to express my gratitude to both of you taking the time out of your busy schedules. Of course, I know that you do a lot of volunteer work, and it's never easy to prepare for, on a whim, a presentation like this. And I just really want to express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart for both of you. And also to thank our lead sponsor of our Science Speaker Series, Bank of America. Without them, we wouldn't be able to host these free complimentary Science Speaker Series episodes, essentially, that are just available to everyone within the community and beyond. So with that, that concludes our February Science Speaker Series. This episode or this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. A few days, it will have to wait till next week when my marketing director is back from Hawaii.
Oh.
Not jealous at all, but she'll
Nice.
see this, so that's my little plug for her. But again, thank you both. I can't say thank you enough, and I just wish wherever you both are right now. Kim, you're on Nantucket right now. Yes.
I'm actually in Wellesley at my daughter's house right now.
Okay.
Oh
Well,
my
I wish that wherever you both are, Wellesley and in Vermont, that you guys enjoy your time off island and come back rejuvenated to just continue doing the great work that you're doing. So
Thank you
thank you.
so
bet.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, and thank you everybody who tuned in tonight. And thanks for
Yeah,
your
thanks. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody. Thanks, Jonelle. It was great. Thanks for your
Of
patience.
course. My pleasure. Not a problem at all. Again, my many years of teaching, well, my 1 year of teaching during the pandemic really is what my formative experiences with all of the tech. I'm just gonna stop
Thank you.
recording.
You were great. Mm.
Yeah.